Hey, everybody. Welcome to my 5th episode of Keeping It Real with Jamie. First one of 2024. Very excited. How about you, Don? Are you excited? Number 2024, our 5th video. We're back at the Crossroads studio here in Toms River, New Jersey. That's in Ocean County, of course. Today, I have a great guest. Well, first, I've been saying his name wrong for since I've been here, so we're going to correct that today. He is the one and only CEO of Crossroads Realty. Chris is an amazing guy. He really, to sit here and do this with us, for one thing, that's great. Thank you. The support. You see the support that I show in my videos and how great the company is and everything. Get the CEO to Weicker, one of the big companies, to come and do a podcast for you and see what they say about that. First, I'm going to ask who you are. All right. But anyway, I do say that all the time. The support this company gives every agent, not just some, is just remarkable. It really is. And it starts at the top and works its way down. So, speaking of coming from the top, we have Chris Stopero. I've been saying your name, Shapiro. How come you never said anything to me?
It's been mispronounced by a million people a million different ways, so I know who you're talking about.
Actually, Ron corrected me last week, and I felt so bad. I was like, oh, my God, I've been calling this guy Shapiro. It's the Italian thing, you know. Got to turn it Italian. So Chris is here today, and what we're going to talk about is the NAR lawsuit. This is huge. This is going to change the real estate market. I mean, it's definitely changing, not just here in New Jersey, across the board. So a lot to be learned today about it, and I'm just stunned. I went to the convention. I go to the convention every year. I'm stunned at how many agents still have no idea what's going on. Even like the agents today I talked to on the street, what do you think about the lawsuit? It's not coming to Jersey yet. Oh, we got time. And I'm like, really? You keep listening to the, I don't know if I'm allowed to NAR.
No, listen, you're getting every end of the spectrum, right? So, I spend a lot of my day talking to realtors, talking to other, owners of other companies in the area, and you're hearing everything from, companies that are being extremely proactive, and, I hope that's what you feel that we're doing, all the way to companies, I'm talking to agents, and they're like, yeah, the owners come in and said, don't worry about it, it's not happening, and go about your business, right? So there's the whole spectrum of how companies are handling change. So
yeah, I think we're ahead of it. We are. I mean, Ron's been, we got buyer's agreement. We got classes that are coming on how to approach buyers on it because it's different. This is a totally
and
game
it's changing every day, right? There's no, this is not a static situation. Right?
Unbelievable.
Literally every morning I wake up and kind of spend 20 minutes of my day just to see where we're at, today. It's changed from yesterday. Staying up with it is difficult. You can't expect agents to become lawyers overnight and figure this stuff out on their own. So really kind of dissecting it, reading through it, and then, getting it out to the agents in a digestible format every day. So you see, my updates on Teams constantly. And just, again, we don't have all the answers, right? No one does. A lot of this stuff's still in the courts. It's still yet to be determined. But staying ahead of it as much as possible is really the best thing that we can do at this moment.
It's the only thing we can do, really, is stay informed. You have to be informed of this, and that's why choosing the right realtor matters, because we're ahead of it. I feel we are. And our company, especially speaking with other agents, that most of the people are saying, yeah, we heard about it, but, it's far away. And I'm like, no. I think Ron had told me I was the first one in the company to do a listing with a zero.
Yes, you are.
That didn't go over too big, Chris. The only calls I had on that, because naturally I'm explaining it to every seller, that I have, and these are your options now. I give the pluses and the minuses like we're being told to do, and it's always their decision.
And we're going to get a lot more today, deep into a little bit more of the weeds of kind of how we got here and where we're at. But what you just said, I think, is the most important statement, right? So allowing the seller, right, to make an informed decision. Sellers don't always make the right decision, right? Nope. But allowing them to make the decision is at the core of all these lawsuits, right? So by you saying, hey, here's an option, right? This is what I'm sure you did on this first deal. Here's kind of the current situation. Here's your options. And if they choose to not offer a buyer's commission and it doesn't work out for them, right, they will learn that, and then they will make a change.
Which my client did.
To me, it's no different than approaching it in the sense of, hey, I want to list my house for 500, and you tell me it's worth 4, and it's really worth 4, right? But you go, okay, go ahead and list it at 5. And then when no one buys the house, what ends up happening? You go back, you lower the price, right? So the market does figure itself out. I don't think anyone's arguing that no buyer's commission is the long-term right answer, but it should be in the hands of the seller, right, to make that determination. Just like the price of the house is their decision, they'll offer a compensation, should be their decision as well.
Right.
And it does fall onto the buy-side agent as well. And again, we'll get deeper into the weeds on that stuff, but you handle it right, and you let the market dictate how. I don't know what the end result of that property was.
We're giving 1.5 now.
There you go. Right, so the market did its job.
The only calls I got for agents yelling at me. Yep. I was like calling Ron. I just got yelled at by this agent.
Oh, when you're a trailblazer, you get beat up.
You're screwing everybody. I said, no, it was up to my seller.
You're doing what the wishes of the seller are.
Exactly.
Right.
And if it, and I explained it to him, hey, we can always go back and add something to it.
Absolutely.
Which is what we did in probably 4 weeks.
Yep.
And so, Chris, how did this whole thing start, this whole NAR lawsuit?
All right. So, you can kind of go back in history as far as you want to, right? This NAR's been poked around by the DOJ for a long time, right? Going back decades and decades and decades for various issues. So if you wanted to do a legal history of issues with NAR and antitrust and the federal government and individual lawsuits, you could go back, decades and decades. If we look more at the current situation, this goes back to 2019 was the first time that a lawsuit was filed that's kind of still alive and that we're talking about today, right? So that was the Sitzer-Burnett case.
Yep.
That started the antitrust talk with the buy-side commission, right? Other issues are at play here, and this has kind of opened up a can of worms that has led to other challenges that we'll talk about. But that one starts back to 2019, so that's kind of the inception of all this. The case sat around from 2019 and did its legal, mumbo jumbo all the way up until recently when we kind of just found out about it. So this has been in the background, just been out of the limelight. I wasn't really paying attention to it. Nobody was, because it was kind of just NAR's been sued a million times, on various topics, and they've really always done pretty well, right? They haven't lost any major fundamental cases throughout their history for the most part. So I think everyone kind of thought, we heard about it, but no need to pay attention to it, right? It'll just go away.
Yep. People still doing it.
Oh, they're still doing it for sure. So, you're left with it kind of got dropped on everybody's lap, pretty quickly when it did happen.
Yeah.
Even though it had been around. So I guess shame on all of us.
The more I'm learning about it, it's
kind of not paying attention to it. But so it gets dropped in our lap. And really where it became kind of obvious to everyone is as the case was progressing before it went to trial, you had a handful of main defendants, right? So you had Keller Williams, Remax, Anywhere, right, which is your Century 21 brands, etc., and a couple others as well as NAR, right? So the first kind of like, oh crap moment was Remax and Anywhere go ahead and settle the case, right, before it even goes to trial.
That's like an admission of guilt.
So it's like, obviously they didn't sign an admission of guilt in their settlement, but they paid a lot of money, tens and tens of millions of dollars, and that was the first moment of like, okay, this is not just another case that's probably going to get swept under the rug and be a slam dunk for NAR. There's clearly something here if, intelligent attorneys at those companies are saying, let's get out of this before. So it ended up going to trial really with 3 people left, primarily, Keller Williams, NAR. They go to trial and lose, I believe, don't quote me, it was like a day of jury deliberation.
It was
quick, right?
Yeah.
So, you could argue whether that means it's a slam dunk or not, but, it happened fast. So really what the crux of that was, and I think one of the parts to kind of is important to understand is NAR's inability to move is where I place a lot of this blame, right? So there's this policy that led to the forcing of offering buy-side commissions, right? That's the crux of the case,
yes.
And I'm keeping everything pretty simple.
Being the key word.
Force is being the key word, right?
Yeah.
The crazy part is the force was there was nothing wrong in NAR's policies about offering $1 as the buy-side commission, right? So they already allowed that. right? There was nothing wrong. You could go on any MLS in the country and drop in $1 as the buy side commission. So this lawsuit was that over that dollar, essentially, right? Now, no one did $1, right? But had they just said you could do 0 years ago as opposed to $1, I don't think we'd be sitting where we are.
That's giving you the option. Yeah.
It's giving you the option, right? So, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of why this is antitrust and all that. It's really not that important at this moment.
Past that.
We're already past that, right? So the case happens. Obviously, NAR's going to appeal it. So, how that particular case turns out, who knows? It already was in federal courts. These unlikely to get overturned, but, it's a court case. Who knows? They have to come up with a ton of money to appeal.
Well, that's the whole thing. So a ton of money.
The billions of dollars, right, just to be able to post bonds to appeal.
Unbelievable.
You could argue that the other defendants probably have money. Keller Williams or some of the big franchise brands could probably scratch the cash up together. I don't know where NAR comes up with billions of dollars to go forward with the appeal process. Nor do I know their internal finances, but it's a trade organization, so I don't know how they get to that point. But if you go on their website right now, you're going to read, "Hey, we're getting ready for the appeal process, and we're good. We're moving forward."
Heard that before.
Time will tell that side of it. But even beyond that case, right? So literally the day after that case gets announced, the attorneys for the plaintiffs in that case go out and file multiple other lawsuits in other jurisdictions, because this only covered a very small area of the country, right? So 2 states, couple MLSs. So overall, very small. So there's now, don't quote me, literally, again, going back to the changes every day.
I won't quote anybody.
There's 15, 20 of these lawsuits floating around to the tune of, hundreds of billions of dollars if they were all found, in favor of the plaintiff. So that case, Sitzer Burnett was focused on the sellers. There's now lawsuits coming out focusing on, the buyers being the plaintiffs. So both sides of the transaction are now getting involved in this. So you have just the legal side of it, right, being tied up in court for years. Legal fees is, I don't know how you deal with that. Every real estate company in the world, and ourselves included, has been involved in lawsuits to some extent, right? And just the legal process is tough.
Yeah.
It can cost more money in legal fees than it does in the case itself. So I don't know how any organization, spends that kind of time in court and can survive. But again, the future for them is untold at this point.
The president of the NJAR leaving wasn't
so you have a lot of movement, right? Getting down to the more local level for us, what you're seeing, and this kind of goes back to the agent conversation, right, is you're seeing people on both sides of it, right? Some people are going, "Hey, let's adapt, let's change, let's get ahead of this, let's see what, let's prepare for the future." And then you have a lot of that, nothing's going to change, the reluctance. We were talking about in one of the classes, the denial phase, right? The denial phase is strong
about your phases,
with some of these people. So we have 2 MLSs, right? Immediate in our area. You have the Monmouth Flex MLS, and then you have Bright MLS that, is a much larger multi-state MLS. And not going to take a side on it, personally at this moment, but just to show you the difference, right? So you have Monmouth, who's still saying, you must be a member of NAR. We're going to charge everyone in the company, regardless of whether they want to be a part of NAR or not. Like, they're just taking that hard line MLS approach. And then you have Bright that says you don't have to be a member of NAR to join Bright. Right, so you just have 2 totally opposite ends of the spectrum between 2 MLSs that operate essentially in the same market area.
Right.
I think you're going to see MLSs step away from NAR, and you're going to see some that run tighter to NAR. Who wins that at the end of the day is, kind of wraps into all this. But what you're left, unfortunately with, and I think this is really, so beyond the lawsuits, right, and we can talk more about them if you want to, but
sure.
Beyond the lawsuits, the other half of this equation that a lot of people aren't talking about is the revived DOJ investigation, right? So the DOJ doesn't care about money necessarily between clients and such, but they care about the overarching laws that are happening. So again, DOJ has been poking around NAR for a really long time, and they kind of had settled down for a few years, and then this revitalized a lot of it. But now you're seeing the DOJ going after clear cooperation policy from NAR, going after e-key access with NAR, right? So having all these monopolized practices inside of the NAR organization, right? Where, yes, our policy is you don't have to be a member of NAR, right? That's easy to say, right? And that is the NAR's policy. You don't have to join NAR, right? You can't use the word realtor. They own that. But other than that, it's up to you. But good luck getting into half the MLSs in the country. Yeah. Good luck using an e-key, right? Good luck, doing all these things that you need to do to make a living. Wow. So the DOJ is digging much deeper into those individual practices of, yes, you're saying the right thing. You don't have to be a member. But if you restrict the ability of someone to do their job by requiring that membership, it's essentially the same thing as saying you must be a member, right? So you're going to see, I believe, more and more of those pieces of the puzzle getting broken up into individual, things. So I think e-key access will open up. I think MLSs that become more agnostic to NAR, that doesn't mean they're against NAR. It just means let NAR sell its value on its own merits. So if you feel NAR is an organization, they do great training and blah, blah, they have their RPAC. And if you value that as an agent, an individual, join NAR. If you don't value that, if you don't perceive a value, then don't join NAR. But you would still have access to the tools to be able to do your job. Right. So that's, I think, where DOJ is going to land on a lot of this stuff. And they've done this in other industries, right? How many, you hear like Microsoft every day, right? So Microsoft loves bundling their products together. You want to use Teams, you got to use, this product, whatever the case may be. And the DOJ doesn't like that. They don't like when one piece of a puzzle requires the use of other pieces. So I think we're definitely going to land there as well. And that's going to ultimately, I think, be a good thing for both organizations. If NAR does survive this, they're going to be forced to provide you better service.
Which,
right?
really,
you got to provide value.
Listen, whether you like them or not, they've really done nothing for me. I mean, except charge me for every stupid
a lot of money.
thing. And God forbid I pronounce something wrong on a listing, they're all over you. And, they're good at that. But
yeah, and again, it's always that story of their side of the argument. I don't like to speak for people, but I would imagine their side's going to be a lot of, we bundle things. We make it easier for you. It's one-stop shopping, right? You pay one fee, you get a bunch of other stuff. But that's not what people want, right? This is a different world that we live in.
People who do want it can still do it.
Can still get it, right? E-Key's owned by, was it General Electric or one of those big, huge companies, whoever it is. So all this stuff is out there. It's proprietary. It could be used by anybody. Another kind of breaking, just to throw the hand grenade into the rest of the mix here, is now Zillow's suing NAR and a bunch of MLSs for anti-competitive practices, which is kind of hilarious because one would argue Zillow's engaged in some anti-competitive practices, but
well, they smell blood in the water.
Oh yeah, so and again, and that just goes to the whole thing of this will be tied up in the courts for years and years and years, and everyone's gonna get their piece at this, right? So when you're being attacked by the DOJ, you got massive multi-billion-dollar lawsuits coming at you. You got MLSs. Now you got individual realtors that are starting to sue.
But it's just all over doing what we were told as far as, I had to. Now, did the DOJ come and offer them a deal in the beginning?
Yeah, there was a lot of, again, a part of it was that going back to that dollar, right, which why I think it's such a hilarious part of the story, if nothing else, is like, hey, just drop the dollar. Right. Yeah. No one was using a dollar. Most people are doing the same thing. They didn't want to do it. That was their policy, and it's about, ultimately, my opinion, it's holding on to power. Right. Like they felt that was the best way, and it's the same thing that these MLSs are doing, that are choosing to go the route of sticking to the end with NAR. Is they feel that that's the best way to retain the power of membership. Right. So again, as this happened, I went to the local board here. With Flex MLS and said, hey, if my agents don't want to be a part of the organization, what's the policy? And their answer was, they don't have to join, but you're paying the membership whether you like it or not. Wow. So if you're taking that hard line approach, right, like you're kind of you're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? Like it's either NAR's going to win this all and it's all going to go away and we're going to go back to the way it was, which is highly unlikely. Or you're going to go the way of the dinosaur, right? Like, and other companies, Bright being the example close to us, but many others all over the country, are kind of just stepping back and saying, hey, let's offer that choice. Let's, let the best MLS win, right? Let the best board win. Let the, best trade organization win. And again, that's why I said, I think at the end of this, it's a positive. there'll be change is always hard, right? So that we'll get deeper into the individual things that realtors need to be doing today. But overall, if NAR survives, they will come out. No one will agree with me at this statement in NAR, but they will come out better than they are today, because any organization that's not forced to provide the best service will never provide the best service, right? If I just had realtors coming in and joining 20 a day into Crossroads and I had to do nothing for that, right? They were forced to join Crossroads. Well, we'd be a terrible company, right? But if I have to go out and show my value as a company every day to prospective realtors, well, then that's going to make us better,
right?
And in turn offer a better service to you.
Listen,
right?
I'm excited about it. It's not that I've been a realtor forever, but I can see all this coming. I think it's going to be for the better in the long run.
What my thought process is, I think the most likely scenario here is that it probably does reduce the number of realtors around the country. I think part-timers, right? The 1-2 deals a year. Not, I'm not knocking anybody.
No.
Everyone's in this business for a different reason, right? But it's going to make some things more difficult. I think the higher performing realtors, the ones that again get ahead of this, which I think is the most important part of this conversation, because anyone can get ahead of this,
of course,
if you get your head around it.
Get educated.
I think they're actually going to do better, right? I think the better performing, the better prepared realtors are going to do better than they did in the past under these new guidelines. How it shakes out as far as the implementation of the new guidelines, I think it is all over the place, right? And again, to our earlier conversation, is I think the market figures it out.
Yeah.
I don't think me and you or anyone else have to sit around and go, what's the right number for buy-side compensation? The market's going to figure that out, right? Sellers are going to realize that, ultimately at the end of the day, any compensation to realtors are a cost of the transaction.
Of course.
Right? So whether they're paying the sell-side realtor, the buy-side realtor, they're paying title, well, all these things are costs of the transaction. So that money just gets moved around in various pots, right? Who walks away with what money at the end of the day? And where does that money come from? Does it come from the buyer? Does it come from the seller? Is it mortgageable? All these questions that exist. And again, that the market will figure out, right? So if you have a $500,000 house and you're offering buy-side commission to the tune of, $10,000, is no different than the buyer having to pay $10,000 and then offering you $10,000 less for the price of your house, right? So again, and that's where the market factors come to play. And ultimately, in this country and how we're supposed to be doing business, is that's the way it's supposed to work. The market should decide how this plays out. I don't think it fundamentally saves money. Like that's if you go on to CNN, Fox News, New York Times, those massive publications that aren't diving real deep into this, that's going to be the headline, right? Is this is going to save buyers and sellers millions and millions of dollars. I don't think it is. I think it's just moving the money from one pot to another, right? Again, if you reduce, you go, oh, as a seller now, I don't have to pay this huge sum of money. Well, somebody does.
Well,
right. So now if the buyer's paying for it again, they're just going to figure out a way to deal with it. So it's going to be a seller's concession. It's going to reduce the price of the house. So I don't believe in this was a crusade for the average buyer or seller, out in the public. Could it end up saving a little bit of money? Possibly. But I don't think that's the core of it. I think the core of it is letting the buyer or seller be in control of that conversation, right? Having the agent that's representing that person be at the core of that conversation. If you oversimplify the heck out of this thing, it's really that the listing agent was determining compensation for the buyer's agent at the time of listing.
Yes.
And that gets into a really, really gray area, clearly, of how the law is supposed to work, right? Then again, what the DOJ is looking into is a clear cooperation policy. At the end of the day, not only it's easy to think of Keller Williams and Crossroads, right, in a local market being competitors, or Crossroads and Remax or whoever, right? All these companies are competitors of each other. But beyond that, technically speaking, you're a competitor of another agent at Crossroads, right? You guys are all independent contractors,
of course.
And we don't obviously harbor or promote that mentality, but that's the truth, right? You're all independent contractors. There's a finite number of houses that are being bought and sold, and agents in the company. So when you start to, blur that line of who's controlling where the money's flowing, whether it's inside a company, outside a company, you have a trade organization that's bringing people together, dictating policy on how this works. That's where you get into this antitrust, conversation.
I can see that. I can see it. Like even I've had 2 listings come on, since this that decided to offer. explained everything, and I said, think about it overnight. You don't have to give me an answer right now, but these are your options.
Yeah.
Then they asked me, well, you're my realtor. What do you think? So I said, well, I tell them what I tell them. But again, you guys have to come up with this, decision on your own.
Yep.
I says, but I'll support you either way. So both of them did decide to give, well, maybe, they were smart about it because, well, we're not going to have anybody look at our house. Would you go show a house if there wasn't any commission in it? And I said, yeah, if my client, needed to, of course I would. I said, but, most won't, and I can't answer for everybody. Personally, I would, but.
Yeah, and listen, we know not every person out there is going to do the right thing, right? So, I think there's two pieces of what you just said. One is the one that no one should talk about, which is, will a realtor show a house that has no commission? Out of like the principal side of it or the being upset side of it. That should never happen, right? That would be super against the law.
Of course.
But the more real part of that, but it's the same thing at the end of the day, is a realtor may show it. Does a buyer want to buy it? Because now if the buyer's responsible to pay that nut, right?
Yep.
Is the buyer going to look at your house the same way? The answer, of course, they're not, right? Mm-hmm. There's more money coming out of their pocket than it was. So, whether it's the kind of the side that we don't want to discuss or the side that's obvious with the buyer, either way, it is going to lead to, it's a competitive market, right? So if we both have the same house, there's plenty of call it cookie cutter communities, right, where every house is the same. So if me and you live next door to each other, we have the exact same house. We're selling the house for the exact same price. I'm offering a commission, you're not. To the buyer, right, one house is more expensive than the other, even if we're at the same price. So again,
which is nuts to me, though. In the big picture, it's really the buyer who's paying everybody. Yeah. He's coming in with the bag of money.
Correct.
So it's confusing.
Yeah, and remember, I certainly don't think this is where we're headed, but I think another important thing for realtors to understand is, you only know what you know in life, right? So people that have been in this business for X number of years know the way it's been done for X number of years. But it's important to understand that there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, right? There's a lot of models when it comes to real estate. You go anywhere in Europe, there's only one realtor in a transaction, right? Or a real estate agent. The listing agent gets the listing, and buyers go to the listing agent. There's no such thing as buyers.
Well, we're only
agents.
one of 7 countries who do it this way, right? See, I pay attention in the class.
And that's important. Not that it's happening here, but just to understand that just because it's happening here doesn't mean it's always going to happen this way. Right, there are other ways. Australia is crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen that. If you don't Google Australia selling houses, it's but essentially they do a live auction in the front yard of a house.
Wow.
So they do like their showing period and everything, and then like on a Sunday they all get together and they're bidding out in front of the house, as an auction, and that's how they do houses there. So I don't even know if there's an agent involved or not, to be honest with you, or if it's like an auction, house type of thing. But that's so there's my point is there's a million models. So to stick your head in the sand here and be like, oh well, this is always the way we've done it and it's never going to change. No.
I don't see.
There's a lot of ways to change.
This is my personal. I don't think the NAR is walking away from this.
It's hard to see that path, right?
And this is just.
I would argue if from day one of this, not from the beginning, but from day one of this happening, if I saw a tone from them that was more, hey, let's work through this together, let's get to the bottom of it, let's talk about it, then I'd say maybe they have a chance to survive.
I think that was their downfall.
But when they took that hardline approach of nothing's changing, we're going to appeal this. Well, okay, you might appeal this one, but what about the other 30 lawsuits at this point, right? What about the DOJ investigation? And that trickles down all the way to the local, right? I think NAR as a federal, or a national entity is in trouble. But again, these local MLSs that are realtor owned or tied to their realtor associations, I think they're going to probably go that same direction, right? Because they're not getting ahead of this. Again, if you're an entity, and I'll just use the Monmouth board because that's who we're with, if you should sell yourself and your value to the realtors. So your reason to join shouldn't be because I have a policy that says you must join.
Yeah.
Your reason to join should be we have great training, we have great classes, we have excellent support, we have the best technology.
They do.
But so then if you're confident with that, then run with it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't, again, as we're recruiting realtors at Crossroads, I don't have to sit there and say, you must join. I'm going to show you everything that we can provide for you.
Why wouldn't you join? Yeah.
And why wouldn't you join? And then do they see the value or not, right? So if MLSs acted that way, I think they could survive this, right? If even realtor boards acted that way, I think they could survive it. But by taking that, slamming the fist down, going, the policy says so, I don't think it works, anymore. I think generationally speaking too, as people coming into this industry, the younger generation, I don't think they play by those rules either, right? They're not the just because I told you generation. They want to know what's the value, right? There's exactly. a lot of money. It's thousands of dollars a year you're spending.
Yeah, and if they do win, they're going. They're going.
I don't know who's paying this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about right these days. That's just my opinion.
And listen, those are things that obviously there's been talk of a lot of agents saying, why don't we all just go to Bright? Right, and that's the problem. Is it's like who's the first one to do it type of thing, right? Yeah. And I wish that wouldn't be the case. I wish Monmouth, because I think we're all comfortable there. They do a lot of good stuff, right?
I like the system.
I wish they would just calm down with their hardline approach. Now,
think it's too late?
So I think it's too late for a lot. So the big kind of news at Monmouth is the CEO just announced he's leaving. All right, so he was the one that was taking that super hardline approach. Who they put in there is, in my opinion, is going to decide the fate of them, right? If they bring in somebody that's going to address this level-headed
the right way
and have a conversation with the realtors and let them into this world and have what if you're going to claim that you're realtor owned, right? Which means you're member owned essentially, right? Technically, you're paying dues. So if you're a realtor owned association, there's a vested interest from all the members. Yet I don't see them coming to the members saying, "What do you guys want?" Right? That conversation isn't happening. And that's a shame, right? That if I was running that organization, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be knocking on every realtor office in this county and Monmouth County and saying, let's sit down. Yeah. Tell me, where do you guys want your future to be? Yeah. This isn't my organization. It's all of ours. and what direction you want to go.
The answer.
No, but they can survive as a board by, again, providing that value. People love Flex MLS.
Yeah,
right? So it's not that they have a bad product. No one's upset about that. So just make the right decisions and you could survive. Now, taking out potentially they could be bankrupted, right? The lawsuits could end it without, you could make all the right decisions and still be in trouble as a NAR affiliate. Right. But take that out of the equation because that's not really a local controlled item. There's a path to survive. And that's what I said with the CEO gone now, it's really who's next. That one decision. So I guess there's a handful of executive board members at the board right now having to choose the successor is probably the biggest decision they'll ever make in their business lives when it relates to that. Who the person is, on it. Yeah. Everything's riding on it. Well, and they could change their attitude or not, right? Time will tell.
I hope they do. So that's where we are now.
That's where we're at now.
The future is going to be, wasn't there something, there was also on the floor of the House in the state for a buyer's listing agreement, a buyer's sale agreement.
Yeah, so, my personal pet peeve is New Jersey tends to be a little behind the eight ball when it comes to getting the documentation out. So, of course, every realtor at Crossroads has called me at some point in the last few months and said, where's this form? Where's that form?
Yes.
The state hasn't put it out yet, right? I can't make that form. No company can. So we're all waited with bated breath, for the state to dump out the correct forms. Listen, buyer's agency I think is a big part of this conversation. Buyer's agency forms have been out forever. Right, well, they exist. They're sitting in that .loop folder that you never opened.
No,
right?
I saw it now. The 2015 one is better.
Correct. Yeah, so they're out there, right? I think my personal opinion is there's a lot of changes that need to be made to that form because it was a form that no one really cared about too much because no one was using it, and that was a New Jersey thing. Other states have been using them for a long time, but buyer's agency is certainly going to play a part in this. So if we kind of go a little bit in the direction of what does an agent need to do today, in my opinion. So the sell side we talked about a little bit, right? In your transaction. Real simple. Be honest with the owner, right? We don't know, again, all the answers. Nobody does. But I think the best course of action right now, until law gets put into place or policy gets put into place by the New Jersey Real Estate Commission, honesty is the best policy, and that's always going to be true.
Right.
Here's what I know. Here's where I'm at. Here's your options. Here's my professional opinion on those options, and then buyer, Mr. Seller, let me know how you want to proceed, and then we'll move and discuss and monitor the situation until we sell your house, right? So that's going to kind of be the underlying policy. So I don't think there's that much difficulty there for people to understand that. Agents 100% are going to get jammed up because they are sticking their head in the sand. That's my big, if we walk away from anything today, is as a warning, and I hope it's not happening at Crossroads agents, but I've been out there every day,
there's
every
been
moment.
talk in our office, we all
it seems like, again, we're getting ahead of this, right?
Everyone's nervous.
But they're aware of it.
They're aware of it, yes.
Again, I've talked to agents from big companies, in our area that know nothing.
I'm stunned over that. That's even I will be told, hey, what about that lawsuit?
And if you're, everyone said, oh, New Jersey hasn't filed yet. I'm like, New Jersey just takes a little bit longer. It's coming.
Oh, and it's going to come in force.
It's coming. So there will be a New Jersey lawsuit, I promise you.
If you're not ahead of the game, you're going to be
and what's going to happen is, the people that are going to get wrapped up into the likely pending New Jersey lawsuit are going to be the agents that are ignoring the situation now, right? Because if you're a seller from a week ago, and you gave them the options, you explained the situation, you did everything you're right. Right? You're
I'm actually putting it in writing.
Absolutely,
100%. In the remarks of the list, you have to.
And again, we all want that.
Mentors I'm working with, and I'm telling them the same thing.
It'd be great if we had a state form to do that, but we don't yet. So you're doing the right thing, right? Get ahead of it, get it in writing, get an email, whatever the case may be, explaining that policy. When we move over to the buy side, this is where things get a lot more difficult.
Because most people are buyers. A lot of agents are buyers.
Yeah, and this is where
it's tough.
Right. So that brings us to buyer's agency, right? So if I'm the realtor and you call me up, you're a buddy of mine, hey, I want to go look at houses. We have a real big decision to make.
Well, that's a tough conversation.
It's a real tough conversation.
And you're going to have it, though.
I can roll the dice. Yep. I could take you out and hope that there's compensation. I can roll the dice, and if we happen to find one that doesn't have compensation, I can then try to have a conversation with you at that point. The risk there is that it doesn't matter if there's compensation or not. You have a fiduciary responsibility. You're going to finish that transaction and get paid nothing, right? Yeah. So that's the worry. And then obviously the other side of it is I can make you sign a buyer's agency agreement, which will dictate how much money you're going to pay me at the end of it. Yep. Now, the seller can contribute to that amount. So if me and you agree that you're going to pay me as the buy agent for 2% and the seller's offering to,
I think that's going to be the number.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, obviously, number's always a dangerous thing to
which is all negotiable.
All negotiable, right? So, but I agree with you. I think the number's going to trend down.
Oh, it's going to be down.
You're going to, I guess everyone would probably say, 6% was the normal, right? Like it hasn't been in a really long time. But the number will be the number. And it may be a combination of that, right? You may get a buyer's, to say, I'll offer you 2, and you may get a seller to pay 1.5.
Yep.
All right. Well, now the buyer's got to come up with a half, right?
Yep.
So you may see a lot of variations of this. But again, if you go out now without a buyer's agency, you're rolling the dice.
Yep.
How you handle that moving forward, if you run into that situation. I'll be honest with you. The one thing that I was surprised about is how fast this happened. You said, you did one already. Now now they're happening all the time. But I remember when the first day we started teaching this to all the agents, day 1, it was like I found 2 in MLS, right? That had a 0 buy side. By day 5 of teaching the class, it was hundreds.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah,
looking at the state.
I looked at
it. It went quick. I thought it would be 1 here, 1 there. I thought it would take months.
And we were getting yelled at as an office. I know the Barrier Island was big. Yeah, you guys are well, listen, get your head out of the sand and pay attention to what's happening.
So that was my one surprise with this. I thought it took a couple months to really start seeing them on a normal basis. Took a few days.
Well, I gotta say, I was within days.
Hey, listen. And again, you should have been within days, because if you were doing the right thing, that means you had the conversation with the seller. That wasn't your decision to do it.
No.
You had a conversation with
his
the seller.
eyes lit up when he goes, I don't have to pay the buyers.
Of course
he was then why wouldn't I go 0? I said, I can.
Because here's the repercussion.
But here's, and sure enough, nobody even wanted to see the house.
So, ultimately, day to day of an agent, I think, if I could give one, go do this today type of thing for an agent is start working on your buyer's presentation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We've all had listing presentations, right? We all remember, you go into the house, you sit at the living room table with the family, and you give your listing presentation, whatever that is for you. Everyone's is a little different. Now you better have that for a buy side.
Yeah, it's common. Listen,
if I
whether you want it or not, it's common. Yeah.
Listen, I use the example. I have my license, but I don't sell real estate. On any sort of basis. So I look at my own life, and I've told this story in all the classes. I think it's important to think about the psychology of the buyer and the seller. I have tons of friends. We all know a bunch of realtors, right? Yes. So even before I got into this industry, I bought and sold a ton of my own houses. And when I sold my houses, I would interview realtors, multiple people, make a very hard decision because in my mind, that money's coming out of I'm paying for that, right? As the seller. When I bought houses, I'd call up my buddy and be like, hey man, you free on Thursday? Can you go show me that house? It didn't matter as much to me. Yeah. And I'm not suggesting that by no means does the buy side agent not have value. But in my mind, perceptually, I wasn't paying for it. Yeah. Right. So that's human nature. Right. So again, when I picked the selling agent, very important. That. When I was picking the buyer's agent, it was like, hey man, you're a buddy of mine. I'll use you. Yeah. And all 3 times I sold a property, I didn't use a friend of mine. I picked who I thought was the best agent for that neighborhood, that property, right? So now if the buyer is potentially paying the buy-side agent, that mentality is going to change. Mm-hmm. So now—
what can you do for me?
Well, sell me, right?
Yeah, now why am I using you?
You're not just the open door guy, right? Or show up on a Tuesday guy. I'm potentially paying you. Accessibility to my agent is going to become very important. Right. Yeah. So if you're an agent, that's why I said I think part-time is going to have a little bit of an issue here, because if I'm paying you and you can't show me a house at 2:00 on Tuesday, we got a problem. You? Right. Like and we're not talking about a little bit of money here. Yeah. Right.
No, that's a lot. Yeah. A lot to look into.
So, so being professional, having that, what are you going to do for me? I think, offering above and beyond being the guy that unlocks the door, because that's the negative connotation of a buy-side realtor is, he just has to show me the houses. We don't have any access to information that clients don't have access to themselves. Right. In fact, you could argue because of MLS crazy, stupid policies, sometimes clients have more access to information than we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How many times have you gotten the phone call, hey, 123 Main Street's for sale, and you're like, I don't see it. Right? Yeah. Because it's not in MLS. Yep. But they're looking at Zillow, who's got more properties in the MLS. The whole system, I could go on a tirade for months for that. But so it's not access to information that we have a monopoly on. It's, you could argue that we have like access to e-keys, right? So we can open doors. But that can't be how the buy-side agent survives. No. The buy-side agent now is you got to become a local expert. You need to know about the schools, the restaurants.
Flood elevation.
I mean, you got to be really providing a value to that buyer if you're going to expect that buyer to pay you out of his pocket for that transaction. So, again, I think great realtors are going to excel here because they already do that. Yeah. Right. Other realtors are either going to have to jump on that boat and get caught up real quick, or they're not going to be in the industry that much longer, right?
Well, the mortgage companies...
had, I think the last stat was, don't quote me, 17,000 realtors left, in the last quarter of the year. So it's already started.
Well, I can see.
Now it's national dues time, so people leave at that time, but this was the most that have left in many years recorded.
Wow.
So the trend is already starting. I don't, whether you attributed it to this or not, who knows? Could just be the market conditions that we're in. But all that's going to culminate in a lot less realtors. But again, for the people that fight their way through this, they're going to do better. That's not crazy. Yeah, it's not crazy at all.
But it's the cream always rises to the
Absolutely.
top.
And again, for people that get through this, like I say,
we will.
They will do better. Less competition. I
agree 100%.
And you'll have less of those kind of part-time agents that do take up a bunch of the deals. I don't think people are just going to use their friend's friend that's a realtor anymore. I think they're going to really look hard at who they're using for this service, which, in my opinion, is a good thing.
Yep, I agree, too. I think the mortgage companies, too, now are getting on board with this whole thing. I've talked to our people, and, it's going to be put in. And I took a class down, and there was one class on this lawsuit down at the convention, and this lady was really good. She was out of Connecticut, and Ron and I took it, and they're already on board. You can get a VA to put money towards as long as the house appraises.
Yep.
So a lot of that's being not told to us.
Yes.
So do your homework. Get out there, and this is happening, folks. There's no. You heard it right here, and Chris is on top of it.
Yeah, and listen, I don't want to do the shameless plug, but if you're out there today working for a company that isn't addressing this, right? Again, we don't know the answers.
Nope.
But if you're not on top of this, if your company's not on top of this, if they're not pursuing a path out of this for their agents, I would be looking for another company to go to.
Crossroads Realty, everybody.
I wasn't going to say that, but
I'll say it.
But find someone that's going to get you through this, right?
And I'm still so surprised at people that really. Let's go away. Okay,
it's human nature, unfortunately, right? I mean, change is tough, right? Denials, it's easier to stick your head in the sand and pretend that, hey, in a few months we'll just go back to the way we're always doing it. Industry's changed, right? This is a shock to the real estate industry. This happens every day in other industries.
Yeah,
things pivot, things change.
Like you said,
any change. There is an opportunity for better success.
At that too. But you're saying, they were just being so hard-headed. It's like, this is the way it is. This is the way it's going to stay. And you're not beating the government.
This industry has stayed pretty consistent for a long time, right?
Was it 2008 or something? I think was the last
major thing.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
It changed some stuff, but not quite to this level, I would say.
No, this is going to change the whole industry.
This changes everything, So, but again, it happens every day in other industries. So it's a matter of, getting. I think I said it in your training session. Like, how fast can you get past the denial stage? That's how successful you're going to be, right? And start.
I was
moving
past
on.
that after the meeting that we had, and the mad thing. Well, you got to move on.
I would say, presented properly and in the light that we're trying to present this. I would say most people made it through the denials. I could see it in their face while I'm doing the training classes, right? The room changes, and they were getting out of the denial phase in the class, which is what I wanted, right? Let's get we talked about it, we got it all out on the table.
You heard the complaints.
Where are we going?
Yep.
How are we gonna turn this in, right? So, one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is what things this opens some doors, right? This opens some doors to some creative concepts, right? How does a buyer's agent get paid, right? I think the traditional way, right, of a percentage of the sale will always be the most common, but is it the only? No, right? You have all sorts of different options now. Could you be paid hourly? Sure. Yep. Could you be paid on a daily basis? Could you be paid on a per showing? Like, all that opens up, and I'm not saying it's the right way, and again, I don't think it's going to be the primary way. But it's a tool in your toolbox.
Yep. Hey, how many times have I gone out and showed 40, 30, 50 houses to people, and then they end up not buying anything? That's all time wasted. If you can get paid for that now, that's a win-win.
Is it crazy to say you're going to pay me, just making up a number, $500 a day, and I'm going to show you houses, and then, X number of dollars if we complete a transaction? Like, it's the craziest part of the business that you can work your butt off for months and never get paid, right? It's part of
the business,
into the situation, but there's options out there now, right? And again, I certainly don't have all the ideas, but you're going to see agents get creative with how they work this.
Ron and I have been talking. We have some ideas, but we're waiting to see how it pans out. Some good I thought were great.
And where I think that plays out first with what we're talking about, where more of a la carte, is on rentals.
Yeah.
Because that's where you get beat up the most, right? And the reward's not there at the end. So, there's companies that have been doing this for a long time in different avenues, right? Where, we have some relationships with corporate moving companies where they'll pay our agents, $500 a day to literally take a client out. They already know where they're going to live, but they're moving from California, right? They never stepped foot in New Jersey in their lives. And there's a system to go out, and we show them where the DMV is. We show them where the schools are, the restaurants. We give them a tour of the town, essentially, cool. Right?
I would excel.
And you're paid per day. So is it crazy to throw rentals into that bus, right? Listen, I'll show you as many properties as you want. It's going to cost you X number of dollars per day, and when we're done, right? If we find one in a day, $500. Nice. I don't think there's an agent in the world that would turn down $500 a day.
I would.
Right? So it does. Thinking outside the box
is going to be huge.
Is not how you survive this. It's actually how you could thrive in this, right? Again, I still think the traditional method is the moving forward method, but all these other tools in the toolbox, right, to offer different services to different people under different circumstances makes you a better realtor.
I agree 100%. I think, that's the way it's going to be. Listen, if you're not going to change, then you need to choose a different profession. That's the way I think of it. Wow, I learned a lot today, Chris. How'd you feel being a guest in your own studio?
It's my first time on this side of the seat in the camera.
I appreciate this. This is all possible because of Chris.
I'm gonna go back to my other seat in the studio and get back behind the camera, not out here. No.
Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time. And again, the CEO of the company is here to explain to everybody who wants to listen, and all you agents out there, if your company is not on top of this, you definitely need to give us a call here because we're ahead of it. We're not behind it. And that's the key to Chris. Chris, thank you so much for coming. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you so much, man. Chris Stopero, everybody, again, who makes all this possible for us here. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. Crossroads Realty, again, thank you too. Everybody have a great new year, and we'll see you on the next show.